Hello and welcome to TALRadio. At TAL, we connect those who are willing to give to those who are in need. It's a very beautiful day today, and I'm sure everybody is enjoying this lovely weather. No matter which part of the world you are in, it's still summer. Almost summer's going on everywhere. So, Andrew, welcome to TALRadio.
Hi, Sandy. Nice to be with you again.
Nice to have you after vacations. Long break. Awesome. So, today's topic is something, of course, as we all know that this is a beautiful series on self-coaching, and you've really coached us a lot. It's been almost almost a year since, we've been running this wonderful series. Time really flies.
Yeah.
So, moving on, this wonderful topic that we would be talking and discussing about today is 6 steps to effective team coaching. Practical step for team coaching. I mean, that's the whole subject all about that we will be talking today. So, to begin with, what I really would like to know that what exactly is team coaching and how is it different from individual coaching or team management?
So the best way to think about this for all those out there that are listening is really with a sport analogy. So if we think about a sports coach, a sports manager, they obviously are trying to get a team to perform, to win some kind of competition or some kind of trophy. And they can go about it in one of 3 ways. Either the coach themselves, the manager, can actually be coached themselves about how they should manage the team. And therefore, they're receiving individual coaching, which we've talked a lot about during this series. The second is they could just show up and manage the team. And that might be, do what I say, this is what I want you to do, let's see how it goes. And then they basically just try and manage the team in that sense. And all they're doing is giving instruction and task and clarity. So that's managing a team. Or the third could be they could actually coach the team, which is what we're going to talk about today. And what that means is the manager, the coach has an understanding of the goals. They get to understand what the qualities of the team are that they've got to work with. And they work on a team basis to work out how they can maximize all of those different components and get the best out of them, understand them, and then move them towards the goal. So 3 very different ways you can approach trying to win a competition with a team. And we're going to focus on the third way today.
The third way.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So moving on, what do you really think team coaching, why do you really think that team coaching is such a critical skill for leaders in today's workplace?
So I would say prior to COVID, it was very normal for organizations to reward and highlight what's called heroic leadership, where the leader basically leads from the front, follow me, heroic, I can make sure we get there. And then sometimes they look around and the team's not there or the organization's not there because they've lost them. They just don't know how to follow. So that's changed post-COVID, mainly because of remote working and also because organizations and younger generations of people are demanding a different type of leadership. So what it now means is rather than me leading from the front, I need to now turn to my team, however big that is, whether it's small or large, and start to understand what it is that they want, start to understand what they're good at, what they're bad at, try to understand how all of that information then informs me about what the team can do and what it can achieve. And then I need to guide that team and lead them forwards, being with them and part of them rather than just charging ahead of them. So in the new era of the world order, in terms of how we get the most out of organizations, it's so important now we understand how relationships work and how teams work to be able to take the whole team and organization forward. So that's fundamentally changed. And also because of more women being in leadership positions, that's a natural state for women to take anyway, much more collaborative and much more involving of team members than maybe the male counterparts have been over the last 20 years.
Wonderful, beautifully explained. So moving on, could you just walk us through the various steps of effective team coaching in very simple and I would say like layman's word?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. So let's think about, again, the old order versus the new. So if I was in the old order, I would be just leading and managing and working out how to do that myself. If we go through the 6-step process around the team coaching, the first thing to do is actually when I meet with my team on a weekly basis, whether that's remotely or face-to-face, I actually really think about what that meeting is about and what we're trying to get out of it as a team and how should people contribute, rather than the classic team meeting, which is how do we do last week? What went wrong? How do we fix it? How can we make that better next week? That's how most team meetings tend to go. So we need to change that to understand what is the dynamic that we need to create in the team to get the most out of everyone. So that's the first thing, making sure we change the weekly leadership meetings to be more productive. The second is, and this is where so many leaders don't do this, is to understand their team. And so what I encourage leaders to do is have a team discovery day where we go off site. We've all been on off sites, and it's not about team building and doing things in forests and building things. It's actually discovering who our team members are, who are our colleagues, what is it that's good about them, what do they struggle with, how can I complement them, and having a real, look within about our team and who we are and how we can actually function. So a team discovery day is a real part of team coaching, which takes time. All these things take time, which is one of the challenges we'll come to later. The third, which is important, is if we think about the competition again, the goal we're going for as any team is making sure that we're aligned and we've got clarity as a team. So that means usually creating team values, creating a vision for the team about what we're trying to achieve, and understanding what the purpose of the team is. It's connecting some of our earlier sessions about what is the purpose? Why are we here? Having clarity around that and making sure that everybody's aligned with that, because if they're not, they might as well get off the bus and don't be part of the team. So that's the third thing. We've got to look at creating the team values and the vision and purpose. So we've got real clarity. The fourth is, once we understand all of that as a leader and we start to see how the team's working, like in any family, we start to understand where the dysfunctionality is, because every team is dysfunctional. There are elements of a team where we don't work together well because either we frustrate each other or we interrupt each other or we just don't complement each other. So the fourth element is understanding where the dysfunctionality lays within the team. And more importantly, how do I contribute to that dysfunctionality as the team leader, as the CEO, as the manager? Because I need to admit that I do contribute to that. That's the fourth thing. The fifth thing, which is something that most people don't think of, is although we've got a team operating, working towards a goal, we're not doing it in isolation. We're doing it in the context of a wider system in terms of our environment, our competitors, the political, the macroeconomic climate. So we need to understand how we fit into the system and how we can actually engage with it. So that's the fifth thing. And then the sixth thing, which is an everyday thing, is actually just having that ability to ongoingly team coach the team. So understanding on a day-to-day basis, what does the team need today? How is that different tomorrow? How do I need to push them and maybe pull them back a little bit? And me being aware of that. So that's the sixth step. All of these steps call for time as a leader to invest in spending with the team. And of course, many leaders don't want to spend time with the team because they want to be doing the things they enjoy doing, which lie with customers or stakeholders. And that's the biggest challenge that most leaders have. So they're the 6 steps.
So when you talk about these 6 steps, are they like related to each other? Or can a leader skip either of these steps? Like, is it like, how do we really describe, like, is it like collaborative of all these 6 steps to be a good leader? How does it really span out?
Yeah, so they all link together, and in my experience, they all need to be present. However, you don't need to start at step 1. So let's say a new leader comes into a business, they inherit a team. They'll be able to tell fairly quickly which of those steps they need to start with. So for example, if everyone is lost and doesn't really understand where they're going, it might be we go to step 3 around creating the team values, the purpose, the roles, why we're here. It might be because actually the team's been working quite well. I'm going to start at step 6. I'm just going to look at how I tweak the team in terms of the ongoing coaching. So we need all 6 over a period of time to be successful, but where we start depends on where the team is.
All right. So moving ahead, how do you think is it possible for a leader to technically create a psychological safety net so that their team members really trust them?
This takes time. So I'm going to describe how this might work for a team leader, and then it's a very courageous thing to do. But normally what I would encourage a team leader to do is to actually start with vulnerability. So at the start of any particular meeting with the team where they want to create psychological safety, admitting how the leader is feeling in terms of worries, anxieties, fears, what are they actually concerned about for the next few months, is a great starting place because it actually is role modeling how they want others to be in the room. You've met many leaders, Sandy, where the leader says, "How are you feeling?" And then they don't even wait for the answer. They go on to something else because they know they should ask the question, but they're not really wanting to understand the answer. So the first part of psychological safety is being vulnerable so that other people in the team feel they can speak up honestly about how they feel. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to have this really good, healthy environment of conflict. Because if we actually can disagree with each other, feeling safe to do so, and we're not going to be judged, we're not going to be reprimanded, we're not going to be discouraged because we're doing it in a respectful way, coming from a good place, it means that people start to think differently. We don't have groupthink anymore. So psychological safety is having space to be. It's about having space to really think about what we're doing. It's about having space to be vulnerable. And it's about having that space to be able to disagree with each other so we can come with a new solution we've not thought of yet. So it's a very difficult thing for leaders to do because they've been rewarded in the past for appearing strong, for appearing fearless, and for actually always having the right answer and knowing the answer. And actually to encourage what you're talking about, we need to admit we don't know all the answers.
That's really wonderful. And I was really saying it's just not about the leadership, but technically all these points that you've just elaborated, they're really true, hold true for any kind of relationship also.
Absolutely. Well, the leadership is all about relationships. We talked about this in other episodes. And for a team, it's all about how do we make sure the relationships are maximized over the next few months as we work towards our goals. And that's what's really fun about this work.
All right. So moving on, you've spoken a lot about purpose, like our purpose, why are we here and all this stuff. But what role does clarity of purpose and goal really play, when it comes to team coaching for leaders especially?
As individuals, we all have either unconsciously or consciously purpose and why we do things. Some people are aware, some people are not aware. So if as a team leader, I can actually elicit from everybody in the team what their own purpose is about why they're here and why they get up in the morning, because it's not just all about money. Money is a one factor, but we want to be happy and feel fulfilled. It means then we can become start aware of those team members and how aligned they are to the group purpose, the team purpose, or the organization purpose. And I've seen plenty of examples where an individual in a team has one of those light bulb moments where they say what it is that they want to do and why they're here, and it's not aligned at all to what the company wants to do. And so they make that decision that I need to go somewhere else, because why would I stay and be unhappy if I can go somewhere else to do that? So we need alignment in terms of purpose of individuals, because then everyone is working towards the same direction without even thinking about it. And therefore the goal becomes easy to achieve. This is so difficult because what we don't want to do as a team leader is find out that one of our star performers, say the salesperson or whatever, their purpose is not the same as ours, and therefore we're going to lose them. But actually, we have to lose them if they're not aligned to purpose, because eventually they're not going to be able to contribute.
Lovely. So moving on, we have heard so much about what I would say is collaborations and coordination, teamwork. So when it comes to collaboration, communication, and coordination, what kind of coaching strategies can really help a team improve?
So this is coming back to a point you made earlier, and it's about really understanding the roles that are required. So if we see as a team leader a number of team members and recognize there are a number of roles that need to be filled, I'm not talking about job titles, I'm not talking about job descriptions. It's about roles within the team, because we need someone that's going to actually think, we need somebody that's going to challenge, we need somebody that's going to drive, we need somebody that's going to be sitting back, we need someone that's actually going to be able to create space. And we all take these roles on subconsciously. So what we need to understand is, through collaboration, what is it that I am best suited to in terms of my natural role? How does that overlap with somebody else that has also their natural style for a role? And the role of the team leader is to make sure they bring all of this together through collaboration to make sure we're not wasting effort, we're not being inefficient, we're feeling fulfilled again in terms of the roles. And if we've got real clarity around that, it's so powerful. It's almost like an orchestra, where actually everybody is just coming in at the right time. They know their roles. They're all very disciplined. True. And it just feels fantastic, the feeling of that, as opposed to, hold on a minute, I've just done that, and yet you did it 2 days ago, and what's all that about? What's the role? So usually the problems around this are around a lack of role clarity, and that's where the team leader can help.
Lovely. And that's how when you play the orchestra together, it's a beautiful symphony.
Yeah, absolutely.
So lovely. So moving on, how can, team members really celebrate their progress and reflect upon their learnings or, shortcomings as a part of self-coaching, basically?
Yeah, usually feedback is usually a good element here. So, and I don't mean feedback from our manager or necessarily feedback from our team. We should be doing that. But more importantly, feedback from our customers, the people that we're serving, maybe people from our supply chains, the people who are involved in partnerships with us, and gaining feedback from them about how they feel about being in relationship with us. That's quite a difficult question to ask again, but we get some really good feedback about, well, it feels good. I really like the way that you do things. Or it can give us some feedback about how they're not feeling good about the relationship. They may say, well, it's really good when we're together, but you know what? I don't feel I can get easily hold of you or actually spend the time I want to spend with you. So if really good feedback from outside, this is the systemic element. So this is a systemic coaching piece. Outside of our initial team, what are the systemic pieces of information that can exist out there can help us to work out how we need to change our behaviors in relationships?
Lovely, especially when you spoke about feedback. Well, all the people who are listening to us at the moment, or maybe in the future, or have been listening to us, since the beginning. If you also want to give us the feedback, well, you can always go on LinkedIn and you just find TALRadio, or you just type Andrew Tallents and
Absolutely.
Go ahead and write those lovely, lovely, beautiful comments that you have to say about us. Okay. So moving on, for someone, listening to us at the moment and who really doesn't have access to a professional coach or professional coaching, how can they really apply all the above mentioned 6 steps that you just mentioned, from the self-coaching practice and put them into work in the team as well?
This is a really difficult thing for most leaders to do. Most leaders feel they are valued and they gain worth from what it is that they do. So it's very much around activity and how busy they seem. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. However, if it means that we don't have time to be with each other as a team, it means in the long term, it's not going to work. So the first thing that somebody can do that's listening to this now or watching this is to actually say, when is the next time I can get together with my team just to spend time with them and maybe look at one of those 6 steps? Change the way we meet, maybe rotate the chair of the meeting. How can we find out where we're being dysfunctional? How can we discover where we all are? Just be with each other and enjoy that. And don't feel guilty that because you're doing that, it means you're not doing something else. Because in the medium term, the more you can be with each other, it means you're going to be able to do things more effectively, more quickly. And that's really hard for leaders to sometimes trust that.
All right. When you talk about trust, there's certainly about the setbacks and the pitfalls that generally, our teams really go. And it's so beautiful that we all go together. We all, face all these things together. So what common pitfalls do teams face when trying to self-coach themselves, basically, without a coaching expert?
What I see that really is challenging is if there's a really good intention to begin with to create the time, and they spend the time and they learn insights about each other. And then what happens is they do nothing with it. They go away for a day or two. They go back into the workplace. They're just the same as they were before. And therefore, the challenge they face is a waste of time in terms of the time they've been with each other. So I think there's a follow-up question for you coming up, but it's about accountability. So how do we, as a team, make sure that when we spend time together, we hold each other to account after we come out of the session about how we're going to be with each other differently? And that might mean me calling out saying, well, you said you were going to do this by the end of the day and you didn't do it. And it meant this for me, which meant I had to stay late. And therefore, can you not do that again, please? So some quite difficult discussions, but we're doing it outside of the workshops, the team events. We're doing it every single day. We can use AI to support us with this. So we don't need to have a coach with us. We can use AI to help us reflect on how we can hold people to account, including ourselves. And there's all sorts of other things we can talk about in relation to that. But that's the main thing. Don't just spend time in the day in the workshop together. Make sure that you start doing those things that you've talked about day after back in the workplace.
That technically means, put your words into action.
Absolutely.
So moving on, we always talk about real life examples, from the people and the leaders that you've coached, the teams that you've coached. So is there any real life example that you can really, showcase or display us or, tell us about, when all the effective, all the 6 steps that you just mentioned sometime back really help the team to come together and get the most beautiful result that they've been waiting for?
Yeah, it's a lovely example. So this is a business based in the UK, and I was working with a team. There's about 9 people in this team. The actual leader of the team, unfortunately, became very ill, couldn't come back into work, and therefore the remaining 8 had to work as a team without the leader. And what was difficult about this time during the time I was working with them is that the whole organization was going through a really big change, which meant their function that they were in was actually being badly affected and was actually being transformed without very much input from them. So as a team, what they had to do was go through those 6 steps, discover who they really were, why they had to go about combined purpose, what their strengths and weaknesses were, how they were going to work without a leader, They had to really work out what roles they were going to play without having that leader. And then what they decided to do is look at the wider system. Who is it we needed to influence around the business to make sure we were better understood? And they all had roles how to do that. And then what they did is actually held each other to account in the way they were going to show up with different stakeholders. Now, it sounds very simple, but this took a period of around about 6 or 7 months for them to do this. And I spoke to the interim leader who's been taking the post about 2 weeks ago. And they said the whole function has transformed in the way they feel about each other. They feel proud. They feel that they're adding value. They feel as one voice when their other stakeholders are interacting with them. And the leader who's been poorly is now coming back into the business and has seen it transformed. So that was with my intervention to start with, but they've carried it on a daily basis outside of the workshops. And so that's, a great story to tell just how successful this can be.
Wonderful. So on that note, this, I would really like to ask you something which is very relevant in today's work culture, because, we have people from all age groups. We have, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. I mean, the workforce is so blended today. Probably it was never like this ever before. So do you feel when we talk about, leaders and teamwork and coaching, how does every generation respond? Like, is it different, or like it's difficult for the younger lot to take so much in and they object to everything that's being told to them? And, for the older generation to absorb things quickly? Like, how does it really work, the dynamics?
So what I'm finding is that the younger generation that are coming through now in their late teens and 20s that are entering the workforce, they certainly now have a clearer idea about purpose and what's important to them than maybe older generations did. Because older generations, including me, basically had a career in a certain function or profession, working for an organization for sometimes a long time. And therefore, that was more important than maybe what I felt was important because I could see my career. That doesn't exist anymore for young people. So young people have to really connect with what's important to them and then go and find it out in the marketplace where that can be actually serviced. So there's a big difference between people in their 50s and 60s who are almost thinking now of the younger generation, well, hold on a minute. I never thought like that, and I had to work really hard to get where I got to. I don't think this is fair. Yeah. So there's a big difference. But what I find now about the younger people, and including my children, is there's much more of an appetite to be more assertive in their views and to actually want to learn how to be the best they can be, but linked to purpose.
True. And they're very much interested in the no's, the how's, and the why's, all those questions, basically. So thank you so much for joining us today, Andrew. But before I let you go, there's one very important question that I need to put up to you, that, it's technically with respect to the listeners who are listening to us at the moment or maybe in the future. What is that one action that they can just take away immediately after this very episode, and they can, just begin practicing team coaching effectively?
The best way to start, if you're not sure where to start, is go to each of your team members and say, if you were me, what would you do differently to make us feel as though we're a better team? And ask every single person, and then take one of those things or a couple and try and put them into action.
Lovely. So on that wonderful note, thank you so much for joining in, and thanks a ton to our lovely audience for tuning in and watching us on TALRadio. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another interesting topic and another interesting episode in self-coaching series. Till then, take care and have a good day ahead.